Hello, everybody. My name is Average Election Enjoyer. Today on July 8th of 2026, and of course, news that has been dominating electoral the electoral field recently has been the recent announcement of Graham Platner that he is going to be exiting the race for Maine Senate. Of course, the reasons behind his exit's very similar in situation to what was seen by Eric Swallow earlier. Of course, very tragic and very disturbing allegations being brought up against him here, prompting him to leave the race in a similar fashion. Um, I'm not going to go into the nature of the controversy because I tend to leave that. Not to say that it's not important, and that and these people who are coming out, these women coming out, aren't and their voices aren't important. It's just that is not something that I cover on this channel. If you're of course curious, there are hundreds of articles you can read in regards to that subject. And all I have to say is that I believe I said this with Swallow's X as well, is that the nature of what happened here is very tragic, of course, um, and just support to all the victims and whatever in regards to this this allegation that we are seeing, um, of course. Um, but to move on, his race, um, as tragic as these allegations are, and the whole circumstances, he's been a controversial. He has many controversies. That is just one thing that I think is so important to note about this election, is how his campaign was able to overcome several of these controversies and even maintain very good poll numbers. That was, probably unexpected. His resilience was certainly a shock in this Senate race. And of course, his campaign bent and finally broke here with this most recent scandal. Um, that is going to be it for Graham Platner. And of course, this has huge implications for the 2026 Senate races. It really dampens the Democrats' odds, if they're not able to pull this race together, of them to be able to win the Senate, not just for 2026, but for 2028 as well. And we're going to be going into that. So we're going to be going into the what I like to focus the channel on, more the electoral side here. Of course, this is the 2026 Senate. These are the races that are currently available. I'm just gonna quickly let's take this map here. This is gonna be toss up. That's blue. These are going to be in leans. Democrats are doing better in these races. Of course, Republicans obviously going to be the favorite here. I think that Alaska is going to be a toss-up just because of the strength of Mary Peltola there. She's been doing really well. And shockingly, Nick Begich has also been the Democrat. There's a couple of Begiches in Alaska. It's like a political dynasty there in, as I was saying, Alaska. And he's up in his governor's race, which he's very unlikely to win, but if he's up in the polls and Mary Peltola's up even higher, that just spells even worse. Of course, favorite. I'm gonna say Michigan. Still is gonna probably lean blue, just because Michigan tends to vote bluer for Senate as well as governor's races. The governor's race is probably gonna be, there was an independent who was, I believe, the mayor of, I don't remember the city in Michigan, but he was the mayor of like one of the major cities in Michigan. He dropped out, and so the Democrats are probably going to win the governor's race by a healthy amount, and that's certainly going to help contribute. Democrats are probably going to, and especially Mallory McMarrow dropped out, shortening the Democrats' field. A lot of people liked her as a candidate, but all three candidates, none of them have any severe scandals or anything that's going to drag them down a ridiculous amount. So the fact that the field has sort of been narrowed is certainly going to help the Democrats there. I guess just for example, we'll say that somehow Mary Peltola pulls out. Not somehow, but she wins the 25 to 30% chance that I give her right now, wins this race. If the Republicans win Maine, Susan Collins gets reelected. This is how this is going to translate. It is going to be a 59 or 49 to 51 map. If Republicans, who are still the favorites, win Alaska, then it's going to be a 48 to 52. Sorry, I'm switching up the first numbers there. 48 to 52 map here. And this is going to be very difficult for Democrats to overcome in 2028. This is there we go. I guess it won't let me make it bigger. But this is going to be the map for the 2028 Senate elections. And remember, Democrats have to get 2 flips if they want to take the Senate, if this is how the map ends up being here. And remember, in 2028, potentially, if they're able to flip a couple Senate seats, they might have won the presidency. We're going to go in with the assumption that Democrats win the presidency. We can also look at what it does without winning the presidency, what the Democrats need to do. We'll crunch a lot of these sort of scenarios in this video, just so that you sort of see the implications. We're going to keep Maine red, and we can go over at the end the Democrats' chances of recovering this Senate election here. But this is sort of, we're going to go with what happens if Susan Collins, once again, against all odds, wins re-election in Maine there. This is the Senate map that Democrats are going to be working with. There are only a couple of flips that I potentially see on the map. Of course, the first is going to be Wisconsin. Wisconsin is the most blue of sort of like the Rust Belt. You'll see where you have Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania here. It is the most blue. This is going to be the best opportunity for a flip. In a good environment, Democrats, I would say, should win this election. This is a race that, yes, they should in fact win. Looking apart from there, the next most competitive is North Carolina. If Roy Cooper wins and wins by a solid amount, then this race will look better for 2028. But North Carolina is notoriously just out of reach for the Democrats, cycle after cycle. In terms of winning statewide offices, other than the governorship, of course. But Roy Cooper was just sort of a different beast in that regards in North Carolina politics. So this would be the next best chance for Democrats to win, and that is going to be the definition of a 50-50 race there. And then apart from that, the only other currently competitive race that we might see would be in Iowa, but Iowa and maybe Alaska, but Alaska is only competitive because the Democrats have Mary Peltola. There's no other candidate who's really going to be able to have the chance that she does in flipping this seat. So these would be the Democrats' only real 4 chances, and I would say that it's only maybe like this is the only election that Democrats might actually be favored to win in 2028. So they might only get 1 flip total. And if that is the case, if Democrats are the president, or if Democrats hold the presidency in 2028, this map would give them the Senate majority. However, if this is the map that we see in 2026, then Republicans are going to hold the Senate at least until 2030. That is how pivotal this Maine election really is. Are you seeing it now? How it really can. If this is like the most likely map outcome probably currently that we can see here, other than Maine this toss up, of course, you could argue for Alaska. Those are really the only arguments that I'll be hearing out realistically. But this is like the most likely map outcome currently because of the boost that Susan Collins has because of, Graham Platner's very controversial exit from the race and the scandals and all that and these most recent allegations. And it wouldn't hand Democrats the Senate. They would not have the Senate in 2028. They would have to wait until 2030 to win the Senate. That is how big of a disaster losing this main Senate race will be. Does that mean that Democrats are cooked for 2026 and 2028 all the way up to 2030? And the answer is maybe. If we go back on Susan Collins' past track record, of course, in 1996, this is where she first won in the general election. She got 49% of the vote, 40 to 43 to 3 to 3. Solid win for her. In 2002, she won in a what one might say is a landslide for that. And in 2008, even more so, Susan Collins absolutely dominant. Of course, it helps that this was a time of less polarized politics. You don't see the sort of you see a lot of Democrats voting for Susan Collins because she's seen as more moderate, and she remains to be. If you look at her track record, she's definitely a more moderate Republican in terms of voting and what she supports. Um, in 2014, she got 68% of the vote, and then in 2020, that is where she sort of hit the wall and polarization really started to set in Maine. She got 50% of the vote. Sarah Gideon only getting 42.39, but she was really affected by ranked choice voting. I believe the total for this race should have been around 52 to 48, so about a 4-point race here in Maine in 2020. And that leads up to 2026, which is going to be a very or looking like it's going to be a substantially blue environment, and with extra polarization, um, it's just a question of is that going to be enough to topple Susan Collins? Are there still Susan Collins Democrats in Maine? That is going to be the question, and not just are there going to be a substantial amount of Susan Collins Democrats in Maine? Because she needs to win Democrats to win this election, and of course she needs to do well with the independents as well, but she needs to win at least some Democrats to win in 2026. Of course, the Democrats probably number one person who's going to jump in this race, Troy Jackson. He was a former state senator. He's fairly popular, but he's not super known. He does not have the statewide recognition that Susan Collins has, and he has 3.5 months to build that. So it's just all about whether he can get his name out and start to win back some of those independents and the Democrats who might vote for Susan Collins previously. However, I think that a good sign for him is how loyal the Democrats were held. I'm not commenting on this as a good thing or not, of course, but a good thing for him is seeing how loyal the Democrats were through a lot of Platner's scandals, especially like some of the earlier ones, like the Nazi tattoo one and some of the other ones, the text messages, Reddit, all that sort of stuff, how loyal they remained until these more recent scandals came out that are very controversial. I would just leave it at that. So if he can get those supporters behind him, then he would have a decent chance at winning in this election. Of course, it's now Platner was favored against Collins, and now Collins is likely to be favored against Jackson here. But truly, if he can boost his statewide image, he in fact does have a chance at winning this election here. And Democrats need him to if they want to have any realistic chance at holding the Senate in the next 6 years. So I'd like to thank you guys for watching this video, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.